Hello, 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 Facebook. This is Debbie Carberry from debbiecarberry.com.au, and tonight I am going to be talking about conflict in your relationship. And I'm a little bit late this week because I got a family. I'm busy like everybody else, and we had some stuff to deal with. So last night's was postponed to tonight. So it will be interesting to see if anybody comes on or not, because I did change the times over. Anyway, as I said, tonight I'm going to be talking about conflict in your relationship. So, I guess I'm going to be looking at what conflict is, what's the purpose of it, why is it important in relationships, is it healthy or is it unhealthy, should we be fighting, should we not, should we actually be more harmonious? What happens when we don't want to fight? Hello, some people have joined me. Please click the share button so that your friends and other people you know on Facebook can join us for the live tonight. So that, as I said a bit earlier, the live tonight is about conflict in your relationship. If you have questions, I will do my best to answer them as we go through. So as I said, I'm going to be talking about all aspects of conflict and why it happens, why it's important, how we manage it. So I guess for those who don't know me, my name is Debbie Carberry. I am a clinical social worker and I am a relationship coach. And a big part of my job is about helping people manage conflict. You know, we, as I bang on about all the time, you know, we do our conflict in the way that it was demonstrated to us. Okay, so we were shown how to do conflict when we were young. We watched our parents do it. They learned from their parents. So conflict, like everything else in relationships, is handed down from the things that we've seen, heard, or not seen and not heard. So the non-verbal stuff, which I talked about communication last week, you know, the way that anger is communicated, and there's lots of ways of communicating anger. Angela, thank you for sharing the video. I appreciate that. Like I said, please just hit the share button below, and if you want to make any comments, it's appreciated. If you want to ask me some questions, that's appreciated too. So let's start off with, what's the deal? Like, we do lots of different ways to do conflict, right? Tons of different ways. Some people literally will avoid conflict at all costs. I have couples come in and sit down in front of me and go, "We never ever fight," and I'm like, wow, that's not good. Because conflict is inevitable, right? If you are in a space with another human being, you're going to disagree about stuff. And in a safe, healthy relationship, we want to be able to tell the other person what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what's important to us. We want to be able to put our point of view across and to have another person respect that and listen to us and help us. So when people say to me, you know, we just don't do conflict, it concerns me enormously. In those situations, oftentimes people are pushing the conflict underground, so it becomes this non-verbal conflict that manifests in resentment and anger and frustration, but it's never fully aired or resolved. It's just grumbling underneath the surface. One way of handling conflict: don't handle it. That's a way of doing it if you want to. Once again, it is boiling hot here and I need more water, so I'm going to drink as we go. Okay, so some other ways that people do their conflict. You know, some people avoid and deny. It isn't happening. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm really happy. No, I'm not upset about anything. No, there's nothing going on for me. When they've lived a history where conflict was scary, maybe it was explosive, maybe there was raging, maybe there was violence, there was this anticipatory anxiety that came before explosive behavior from their parents. And so some people, no, there's nothing going on, it's all good, it's all going to be good, and they want to really hide away from the conflict. Other people, you know, give in rather than go into conflict. So when a partner begins a discussion around, I'm unhappy, I don't like it, rather than go into conflict and actually discuss what's going on, what they do instead is go, you're right, I'm not doing the right thing, I shouldn't do this, this is really bad, I should change it, I should do better, and that is not helpful either. Some people go directly into blaming and shaming and using some really unhealthy communication skills like criticism, contempt, put downs, belittling, things that just are very shaming and will shut down conflict in a heartbeat, you know, because the other person will be silenced. Some people need to win, and this is, I think for a lot of people, this is the case, where conflict becomes one person is right and another person is wrong, and we need to find out who the right person is. And I don't think that's accurate at all. Like, I think that is probably the least accurate idea, because for each of us, you know, when I'm in conflict with you, it's because I believe something really strongly. When I'm in conflict with you, it's because it matters to me enormously. And, you know, it's when the conflict comes when we butt up against another person's values or their boundaries, or we want something and it's not happening, and we have a need that's not being met, and conflict rises to the surface. When we disagree around parenting, there's lots of parental conflict, because guess what? We learn how to parent from our parents, and we both come and do it generally on a gender basis, and, you know, the two genders have been taught differently to parent, so the conflict around parent can be enormous. And who's right and who's wrong? Well, both people are right for themselves. And I think with conflict, we have to remember that, you know, if we try and depersonalize the conflict, it's not about me being right and you being wrong. It's not about blaming you. It's not about shaming you. It's about saying, for me, this is how it feels, and I don't like it, and I want something to be different. And how are we going to achieve that, you know? And now I'm going to hear you, and I want to know what you think and what you feel, because I want us to work this out together. So, you know, when we go into the competitive space, it is much, much more challenging to deal with our conflict. Way more challenging. Some people are a little bit more slippery, and so they move to manipulation. You know, passive-aggressive behavior is really challenging in a relationship. It can undermine the relationship. It can leave people feeling unheard. And, you know, it just can really corrode really honest discussion. So manipulation is very challenging, and if we don't, you know, stand up and say, this is how it feels for me, which can be hard. You know, if you don't feel safe doing that, it can be really challenging, but it's a really important component of managing conflict in a relationship. As I said, if anybody has any questions about conflict in their relationship, please pop them into the comment box below. I can see people watching. Sometimes people really want to be quiet, and that's all right too. You can put private messages in after I've finished. Okay, so of course that's some of the things that I see and experience with. I'm just reading my notes, by the way, that's why I'm looking up. I see people struggle with when it comes to conflict in their relationships. As I said in the beginning, conflict is inevitable. It is and as important in your relationship as laughter, as sadness, as most things that come up. It's normal and it's healthy and it's good for you. And if it's handled appropriately, it really opens up space for you and your partner to really have a deeper, more loving connection than you had before. You know, when we are respectful in our communication and we are there for our partner. And we can hear them, and we want to solve the problem. When you get on a team together to problem solve, rather than do the things I've just suggested, you know, when we're on the same side going, okay, what are we going to do to manage this situation together as a team? So let me talk a little bit about, I did mention the 4 horsemen last week, so I'll quickly mention them again. So 4 things that are absolutely going to throw gasoline onto your conflict fire are the 4 horsemen, which are stonewalling, which means not speaking and shutting down, defensiveness, which is all about, you know, that blaming, shaming, manipulative stuff, criticism, you know, you are bad, you are not okay, you always, you never, those kinds of comments, and contempt, which is eye-rolling, disrespect, being quite mean to your partner. So those things will absolutely, guaranteed, 150% just make the conflict explosive. So we try and avoid it. That's the best thing for us to do, is to try and avoid using the 4 horsemen and actually finding some healthy ways to fight. So I'm going to talk you through some things. The first thing I'm going to talk to you about is, when you don't actually want to have a fight. So when not to fight. This is a very important thing. So there are appropriate times and inappropriate times to have conflict with your partner. An inappropriate time to begin a conflict is bedtime, because depending on how you were raised, depending on your need to resolve, you're tired, you've had a long day, you may not have a very long fuse, you may be wanting to actually rest, and so it is likely that if you begin conflict at bedtime, it is going to escalate, and it's going to be really distressing. I remember many years ago when I was training, people saying, we have to tell couples, go to bed, not on an argument, which meant resolve it. So if you begin your conflict half an hour before bed, you may not sleep until 2 o'clock in the morning, and that is actually not helpful. And I know couples who go all night long fighting about stuff, and it's not helpful because you guys are then exhausted and can't give your best selves to the discussion. So really important to know that that is not a time to fight. Another time, and I'm using conflict and fight interchangeably, and what it means is when there is a disagreement, if you call that fighting, if you call that conflict, whatever you call that is appropriate for you, but I'm using them interchangeably. So another time when it's really not helpful for you to have conflict is when you got to be somewhere, like, getting kids ready for school in the morning, having to be at a function and everybody's trying to get ready. Somebody is literally about to arrive at your home. These are not good times, and that doesn't mean you have to pretend, but it does mean that you need to put it on hold, be mindful and say, this needs to be dealt with. We need to deal with it. However, we need to do that when we come back. We need to put it on hold until this evening. We need to do this after our meal tonight. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing it. Conflict doesn't have to be dealt with in the moment. We can choose our time. In fact, when we plan it out, there's a much higher likelihood of us getting a better outcome. So, when else not to have conflict, or when to avoid it? When we are not in a good space. So if we are in an extremely heightened emotional space, if we are very, very, very angry, it's going to be challenging to manage a conflict, because from a very heightened space, how are we going to have a meaningful discussion? When we're heightened and we're angry, we're probably going to say things and do things that we regret later. So try to go, okay, right now I'm too angry to talk to you about this. I'm going to talk to you, but not until I've calmed down a bit. Something else that's really important is, when you get into conflict, and you will, some amazing pointers. These things are gold and really important, and will make all the difference in the world to you having a good outcome from a conflict and making conflict less distressing in your relationship. So listen to your partner and try to just listen. So instead of making your response in your head begin, stop and actually hear what they're saying. If your partner's saying, I feel like you don't hear me, I feel like we can't talk about this topic, I feel like, sorry, gosh, there's some noise in the background, sorry guys, I feel like, I need you to stop for a moment and help me. I've completely lost my train of thought because there's a noise in the background. I don't know what is going on, but there are people making noises. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to try and get back on track now. Sorry about that. So what I was saying was, so with our partner, it is super important for us to hear them. So they may be telling us something that we don't want to hear. They may be wanting to respond to us. They may be wanting to defend their space with us. And our job is extremely important in that moment to go, I just wanted to listen to the words, and know that for them, this is true. It's not necessarily true for me, but it is true for them. And I want to honor the fact that it's true for them. It may not be true for me. be mindful of not using the four horsemen when you get into this distressing space. Be mindful not to get up and leave and shut down your partner. You can say, I need to stop now, I want a time out, this is not helpful for me right now and I'm taking a break, but I'll be back. I'll be back in half an hour. I'll be back and we can talk about it in the morning. I'll talk to you when I get home from work. You can put it on hold and come back to it. It's really important that, if you are hungry, angry, lonely or tired, you address that first. Go eat something, get some rest. Do what you need to do to get you to the space where you can have a conversation calmly as you can. Something I want to talk about is silence. And some people believe that if they just silently completely disengage, then the conflict is resolved. It will just remain silent until it is forgotten. This is quite an abusive thing to do to somebody, to emotionally shut them down and keep them silenced is not helpful for you or for the person involved. Silence is deafening sometimes. When you are reaching out to your partner saying, please can we work this out, and they will not even speak to you. When your partner will get up and walk out of a room when you walk into it because they want you to know they're angry with you. This is a really, really bad thing for your relationship. It's quite damaging. It causes a lot of distress to the person who wants the conflict resolved. And I've talked to couples who do this not for a day or 2 days, but weeks. If you have little people in your house watching this silent conflict, you're going to be confusing the hell out of them. They don't know why you're not talking to each other, but they feel the tension in their bodies. If you don't know how to manage it, get some help, but do not silently withdraw. Silence is not helpful. Silence oftentimes is used as a way to have power and control in a relationship. So the person who is being silent has a lot of power. And it's important that the couple get some help with that and learn to set some boundaries around how they manage that if that happens in their relationship. Silence does not resolve the conflict. Generally speaking, the conflict will arise again and again and again, and it never gets resolved. I know lots of couples who will have a revolving door of a topic, for example, it literally is a revolving door, that whenever they get into that particular topic, around they go, and it becomes this battle about who's right and who's wrong, and why can't you see my point of view? Why can't you hear me? Why can't you understand? Those topics need to be left alone. Sometimes we can't resolve difference. There are some topics that you and your partner may never, ever, ever resolve. And, that doesn't mean your relationship is flawed. It means that maybe you have a conversation that says, this is a topic that we disagree on. This is a topic that may be based on our values and beliefs. It may be based on our history or our culture. We have to respect the fact that we both have different opinions on this, and we need to leave alone. That's hard to do when you feel very strongly about something, and sometimes, some help with that is really important to help you both get to a peaceful place with it. Getting peaceful isn't about condoning. Getting peaceful isn't about saying it's okay. Getting peaceful is about saying, we disagree, and we do that respectfully. I'm really hoping that my live is still working. Facebook is doing some funky things and I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to just continue, and hopefully the live is continuing. I'm hoping. So, given all of that, the next thing, and actually, if anybody can see me, could you just pop in a comment or flick a like or something across the screen just so that I can know that it's still live streaming, because like I said, I'm not really sure right now that it is live streaming. And if it's not, I probably shouldn't just talk to myself. So if it's not live, if you can see me and hear me, if you could just let me know, that would be really great. I'm hoping somebody will pop in something so that I can see that it is still working. Fingers crossed. And somebody has just sent me a note saying, it is, I've been watching. So that's good. So I'm still live. Great. Thank you. Okay, so the next thing I want to say, the final thing I want to say is about disconnecting and repairing. And this is probably the most important part of conflict. This is a really important part of conflict. Conflict isn't bad. It's just not. Like, we can be in conflict and still be really okay. But it's how we do the conflict and what we do when the conflict ends. Conflict creates a disconnect. You know, we don't feel good. We don't feel happy. We feel very uncomfortable. And in that time, the important thing for us to do is reach back out to our partner and say, you know what, our relationship is more important to me than this conflict. Repairing is a skill, and it's a really important skill. Me and my hubby have, in the past, I'm laughing because it always makes me laugh, have sent each other via text message, you know, a white flag. We got a little picture of a flapping white flag, which says, you know, we're raising a white flag. We don't want to continue the conflict. We want to stop now, and we want to be kind to each other. You know, when somebody comes with a white flag offering, it's really important that you accept their offer of an apology or their bid for connection and repair, because, you know, it takes courage when there's been conflict for one of you to be the one who reaches out and says, I still love you, you're so important to me, I'm sad that we fought, and I want us to not be angry with each other. So it's super important that we reach out, and when we do that the other person is a kind, compassionate space who says, you know what, it's okay, I agree, let's move past this, let's work our way through this. Bids for repair are really important. We do them all the time in our life, in our work life, with our children. You know, when people have hurt us, or we are unhappy or upset by something, they're small gestures. Sometimes it's a hand on your arm, sometimes it's a you know, some touch or a gesture that says it's over, the conflict is finished. And those are really important things. Like I said, the conflict is not as important as how you reconnect and you repair, because that's super, super, super important. You have all been very patient. I see people sitting here, and I'm going, I can see people sitting here, and you're always so silent. But if you have any questions, please pop them down in the comments. I'm happy to answer your questions about conflict, or comment on what I've talked about. I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. I've got to have some water because I'm boiling hot. That's better. So yes, if you want to ask questions, go ahead and do that. If not, I'll begin my wrap up for tonight and let you know a couple of things. So at the moment, I am running a free relationship reconnection Kickstarter. You can get that link from the top of my Facebook page. That's only going to be open, I think, for another 7 days, and it will close next week. In addition to that, you can see other live videos that I've done in the last few weeks. I've talked about connection, I've talked about conflict, I've talked about communication, and I've talked about boundaries. So if you want to take a look at those, they're on my Facebook page too, and you're more than happy to have a look at them. You can also see some of my stuff on YouTube, Instagram, so if you want to have a look there for anything that I've written or anything that I've posted, you're more than welcome to go there too. In addition to all of that, my 6-week relationship program will be beginning in February. I'm really excited about that, and I'll be giving more details about that in the next week or two. So if you're on my newsletter list, you will be getting some very exciting news about some very special offers for that. And you can actually sign up for my newsletter over there, I think. There's a couple of free downloadables on my page. So, there are no questions. So next week for you, I am going to be talking about attachment. And attachment is the cornerstone of everything when it comes to relationship. It's the way our brains respond to getting our needs met, and we do it very early in life. So next week I'm talking about about why we pick the partners we pick, why we do conflict the way we do it, why we manage, how and why we manage our own emotional state, you know, why do we do a lot of what we do. And I'm going to make it hopefully interesting and not too boring, because science can be a little dry, but hopefully it won't be dry. So tune in next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time if you would like to know more about attachment and why we select the partners we do. It's also, I should mention that, it's also the way we parent our children. So from 0 to 3, we set up our attachment styles for our kids, with our kids in a dance of connection during those really early years. So if you're wanting to know a bit about parenting and attachment, I'll be talking about that next week as well. All right. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. I hope it has been helpful for you, and I will see you again next week. As I said, for more information, go to debbiecarberry.com.au.